Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. I never thought that 10 years of marriage would end this way. That night, when Emma pushed open the door to her house, I knew something was wrong. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes smelled of smoke, and she had a slight blush on her face. I sat on the couch, pretending to focus on the paper in my hand, but actually secretly watching her every move. "Hi, honey." I tried to greet in my usual tone. "Busy day at work?" Emma avoided my gaze and responded casually, "Well, pretty busy." She walked straight to the bathroom. "I'm going to take a shower first." I looked at my watch, and it was almost 1 in the morning. This is the third time this week that Emma's been home this late. As a college professor, I'm used to working late, but Emma is different. She has always been very conscientious about her work schedule and rarely stays out past 10 p.m. In recent times, Emma's behavior has become increasingly erratic. She came home later and later each day. Even more disturbing to me was the fact that she seemed increasingly indifferent to my work and interests. We also communicated less and less with each other, and even the most basic greetings became perfunctory. Emma and I met and fell in love at university. At that time, she was a reporter for the school newspaper, lively and cheerful, curious about everything. After graduation, Emma got her dream job in television, and I stayed on to teach, specializing in sociology. We soon got married, bought a house together, and lived an enviable life. However, lately this blissful life seems to be quietly unraveling. I put down the paper I was holding and walked to the bathroom door. There's the sound of clattering water from inside, and Emma appears to be taking a shower. I hesitated, but knocked gently on the door. "Emma, are you okay? Do you need me to fix you a snack?" "No, I'm fine." Emma's voice came through the door panel. "Go to sleep. You don't have to wait for me." I sighed and went back to my bedroom to lie down. My mind kept going back to all the unusual things Emma had been doing lately. Coming home late every night, the inexplicable business trips, and the stumbling explanations. I felt like something important was happening between us, but I couldn't pinpoint it. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Emma was still asleep, and I gingerly got up, ready to go to the kitchen to make breakfast. At that moment, the idea suddenly flashed through my mind. Maybe I should check her cell phone? I knew it wasn't the right thing to do, but my inner turmoil drove me to reach for Emma's cell phone. My hand shook a little as I entered my password. Luckily, Emma hadn't changed her password, and I quickly accessed her cell phone screen. I quickly skimmed through Emma's comms and texts, most of which were work-related. Just as I was about to give up, a text message from an unfamiliar number caught my attention. "It was fun last night. I hope you didn't get caught. Let's meet somewhere else next time, G." My heart raced instantly, and a chill ran up from my feet. What does this text message mean? And what is Emma hiding from me? Who's G? After reading these messages, I hurriedly put my phone back down and hurried into the kitchen, ready to start making breakfast. "Good morning, darling." Emma's voice comes from behind me, and I try to control my emotions as I turn to smile at her. "Good morning, Emma. Did you sleep well last night?" "Not bad." Emma yawned. "What's on the agenda for today?" Acting as if nothing had happened, I asked, "How about you? Do you have to work late today?" Emma avoided my gaze and said casually, "Maybe. Work has been really busy lately." I nodded and didn't press the issue. But the inner doubts grew stronger. What is Emma hiding? And who is the mysterious G? I decided it was time to get serious. Over the next few days, I began to watch Emma's every move closely. I tell myself that maybe it's all just me being paranoid, and maybe Emma really is just busy at work. But every time I think about that suspicious text message, the inner turmoil wells up again. Wednesday night, Emma was once again working late. I sat in my study, pretending to grade a student's paper, but actually waiting for her to come home. My heartbeat couldn't help but speed up when I heard the sound of a key being inserted into the lock of the door. "I'm home." Emma's voice came from the living room. I walk out of the study and see Emma taking off her heels. She looked tired, but there was a hint of undetectable excitement on her face. "Did you have a good day at work?" I asked tentatively. Emma nods. It's not bad. We're working on a new show, so we've been especially busy lately. Just then, Emma's cell phone suddenly rang. She glanced at the screen, a flash of panic on her face. I have to take this call, she said hurriedly, then walked quickly to the balcony. I stood still and listened as Emma lowered her voice. Although I couldn't hear the specifics, I could sense that her tone was intimate and not at all like she was talking to an ordinary coworker. When Emma returned from her call, I pretended not to notice anything unusual. Was it something at work? I asked casually. Yeah. Emma replied slightly nervously. It's just the schedule for tomorrow's shoot. Greg, that's our new director. He has some things to confirm. A shock went through me. Greg? The name immediately made me think of the G in that mysterious text message. Trying to remain calm, I continued, Oh, Greg? I don't think I've heard you mention him. Emma explained, somewhat flustered, Oh, he's a recent addition to our station. We're in charge of this new program together, so we often need to communicate. I nodded and didn't press the issue any further. But I knew I had to take action. The next day, I decided to leave work early and visit the TV station where Emma worked. I told myself it was just a surprise visit, no big deal. But deep down, I knew I was looking for evidence. When I arrived at the station, the receptionist told me that Emma was in the studio taping the program. I pretended to be oblivious when I asked, Oh, is that with Greg? Emma mentioned last night that they were working on a new show. The receptionist smiled. Yes, Emma and Greg have been working together a lot lately. They've been working well together. But it should be almost over now. Would you like to wait for her? I shook my head. No, I have some things to take care of. I didn't go far after leaving the station. I parked across the street and decided to wait for Emma to get off work. About an hour later, I saw Emma walking out of the TV building with a tall, handsome man. That man would be Greg. I followed them carefully, keeping a safe distance. Emma and Greg looked close, whispering and smiling from time to time. Together, they walked to a nearby cafe and sat in the window seat. I could see them clearly through the glass of the cafe. Greg seemed to be saying something funny and Emma was laughing her ass off. At one point, I saw Greg reach out and caress Emma's cheek, and Emma didn't duck. That intimate gesture sent a wave of nausea through me, my stomach turning. After about half an hour, they left the cafe. I continued to follow them and watched them walk towards the parking lot. By Greg's car, I saw them hugging goodbye. That hug lasted much longer than it should have between normal coworkers. Just then, my cell phone rang. It's Emma. Honey, her voice came over the phone. I might be working late again tonight, so you don't have to wait for me for dinner. I took a deep breath and tried to control my emotions. Okay, no problem. I replied as calmly as I could, You don't work too hard. After hanging up, I watched as Emma got into her car and drove away from the parking lot. I hesitated and decided to keep following her. About 20 minutes later, Emma's car pulls up in front of a bar called Sweet Times. To my surprise, Greg's car was already parked there. I watch as Emma walks into the bar, her demeanor skilled as if she's been here often. I parked across the street and sat in my car staring at the door of the bar. Time passed by and my heart grew heavy. It wasn't until late at night that Emma and Greg came out of the bar. They both looked a little tipsy and Greg put his arm around Emma's shoulders and helped her into the car. I watched Greg's car disappear into the night and felt a wave of powerlessness and despair. How I wish it was all just a bad dream. How I wish Emma was still the same wife I love so much. But reality mercilessly crushed my illusions. Early morning sunlight pours into the bedroom through the gaps in the curtains, bringing a touch of life to the silent space. I opened my eyes, and Emma's place beside me had long been empty, leaving only a sunken outline as if silently saying something. I reached out to touch the slightly cooler sheets there, my thoughts coming in like a tidal wave. Last night keeps replaying in my mind. The way Emma and Greg were so close at the Sweet Times bar, the way they looked at each other and smiled, and the long, drawn-out goodbye hug. These images are like sharp blades that cut across my heart over and over again. I force myself to get up and mechanically go through my morning routine. When I brush my teeth, my gaze in the mirror is dull, as if I have aged 10 years overnight. I stared at my strange self, and suddenly realized that I had to take action. After breakfast, I drove to the Sweet Time bar. Even though it was not yet business hours, I noticed that the back door was half open, and the sound of cups and plates being cleared away came from inside. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The bar smelled faintly of alcohol and tobacco, and a few tables still bore traces of last night's revelry. A middle-aged man was busy behind the bar and was slightly surprised to see me. "Sorry, we're not open for business yet," he said, a hint of caution in his tone. I forced a smile. "I'm not here for a drink. I want to inquire about something about my wife." The man raised an eyebrow. "Your wife?" I pulled Emma's picture out of my wallet and pushed it in front of him. "That's her, here last night with a guy." He glanced at the photo, a flash of realization in his eyes. "Oh, you said Emma, ah?" His tone suddenly became hesitant. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble. I just want to know the truth," I pleaded. "Does she come here often?" And with that, I slipped $300 into the man's hand. The man was silent for a moment, as if weighing whether or not to speak. Eventually, he sighed. "Yes, she and that man Greg come around a lot. They always choose the most secluded corners and sometimes stay late." I felt a hard grip on my heart. "Can you tell me more?" He hesitated, then said, "Look, I wouldn't normally do this, but I think you have a right to know. We have security cameras here, so if you want to see the footage from last night." I nodded eagerly. He led me to a small room where a couple of monitors sat. He operated for a moment, pulling up last night's footage. The scene shows Emma and Greg sitting in a corner booth. They leaned in close, whispering from time to time, with a look of ambiguity in their eyes. Their demeanor became more intimate as time went on. Finally, near closing time, Greg suddenly leaned forward and kissed Emma. What broke my heart even more was that instead of refusing, Emma responded to the kiss with passion. I felt a spinning sensation and had to hold on to the table to stay on my feet. "There's one more thing," the man hesitated, but blurted it out. "Last night, I overheard them talking about some Hawaii trip. Greg said he's booked his flight and hotel for next week." The words were like a hammer blow, shattering my last hope completely. "Next week, it's our 10th wedding anniversary. Emma is actually planning to spend time with another man." I thanked the man woodenly and staggered out of the bar. The sun stung my eyes, or maybe it was the tears that blurred my vision. I wandered aimlessly through the streets, and everything around me seemed to have lost its color and sound. I don't know how much time had passed, but I came back to my senses and realized I was standing next to a park bench. I shakily pulled out my cell phone and dialed Emma's number. The call was quickly answered, and Emma's voice came through on the other end with its usual sweetness. "Honey, what's wrong?" I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice calm. "Emma, we need to talk. About our marriage, about you and Greg, and your trip to Hawaii." A long silence suddenly fell on the other end of the line. When Emma spoke again, her voice had lost its confidence and sweetness, replaced by a deep sense of exhaustion and remorse. I understand. I'll be right home." Hanging up the phone, I slowly sat down on a bench and stared at the skyline in the distance. The sun is still shining, pedestrians are still in a hurry, but my world, at this moment, completely collapsed. The moment the truth came out, I suddenly realized that some wounds are far harder to heal than one might think. I closed my eyes and sighed deeply. The ensuing conversation would determine the fate of our marriage, and I was ready to face it all. Regardless of the outcome, I know that starting today, I will turn a new page in my life. The sound of the door lock turning woke me up. I got up from the couch and watched as Emma stumbled into the living room. Her makeup was a little messy and her eyes were red and swollen, obviously having cried. We stared at each other for a second and the air seemed to freeze. "So," I break the silence, my voice horribly cold. "Do you have anything to say?" Emma lowered her head as the tears welled up again. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I really am." "Sorry?" I sneered. "That's it? 10 years of marriage for a sorry?" "I don't know what to say." Emma looked up, teary-eyed. "I know I hurt you." "I hurt?" I interrupted her, my voice starting to rise. "Emma, you betrayed me. You ruined our marriage. And now you're telling me you don't know what to say?" I wasn't trying to hurt you, Emma sobbed. It started out as, it was just work coming and going. And then without realizing it, my anger completely exploded. Without realizing it, you were rolling into bed with Greg? Without realizing it, you were planning to go to Hawaii with him? On our anniversary? Emma looked at me in shock. How did you know about Hawaii? Does it matter? I said coldly, what matters is that while I'm here working hard for our future, you're betraying me behind my back, cheating me, fooling me. I was wrong, Emma said as she dropped onto the couch. I know I made a big mistake, but please, give me a chance. We can start over and I'll... Starting over? I interrupted her, sarcasm in my voice. Emma, do you think this is crashing my favorite mug? You betrayed my trust. You trampled on our vows. You think it's that easy to start over? So what do you want me to do? Emma looks up at me with despair in her eyes. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself. I want you to leave. What? You heard me, I said. Pack your things and get out of this house. I don't want to see you again. Emma sat still for a moment, then silently stood up and walked to the bedroom. I listened to the sound of her packing and had mixed feelings. 10 years of memories flashed through my mind. Happiness, sadness, laughter, and tears, all of which were now an absurd farce. Half an hour later, Emma appeared in the living room with her suitcase in tow. Her eyes were redder from crying, and her whole body looked haggard. I'm leaving, she said softly, and I'm really sorry. I hope you can forgive me someday. I didn't answer, just looked at her coldly. Emma sighed and dragged her suitcase towards the door. The moment she was about to step out the door, she looked back at me one last time. I loved you, it's true. The sound of the door slamming shut stung in the silence of the room. I stood still, feeling the anger, sadness, disappointment, and sense of betrayal come over me like a tidal wave. In this moment, I made up my mind that I wasn't going to just let it go. Emma and the man named Greg, they're all going to pay for this. I walked towards the den and picked up my cell phone. The flame of vengeance burns in my heart. I turned up a number, one that my friend Ron had given me the other day when I wasn't sure I wanted to use it. Hello, is this Jerry? My voice shook a little. I need your services. Jerry is an experienced private investigator. After briefly explaining my situation, he expressed understanding and promised to start an investigation as soon as possible. Give me a week, Jerry said, and I'll give you a detailed report. The following week was the longest week of my life. I forced myself to focus on my work and tried to distract myself, but the shadows of Emma and Greg always lingered in my mind. Every night, I checked my mailbox in anticipation of hearing from Jerry. Finally, on the 8th day after Emma left, I got an email from Jerry. I have completed my initial investigation, the email reads, and all the information is attached. Some of the content may make you uncomfortable, so please be prepared. I took a deep breath and clicked the download button. The content of Jerry's report was not as dramatic as I had expected, but each finding was like a hammer blow to my heart. 1. Jerry investigates Emma's credit card records and finds that she has made numerous purchases at high-end restaurants and hotels over the past 6 months that far exceed her normal spending level. Much of this spending occurred on days when she claimed to be working overtime. 2. Social media investigations revealed that although Emma and Greg rarely interacted on their respective accounts, they frequently appeared in photographs of the same location, even though the photographs did not show them together. 3. Through a background check on Greg, Jerry discovered that he also had rumors of an inappropriate relationship at his previous workplace, which may have been one of the reasons he came to our city. 4. The report also includes a statement from an employee of the Sweet Time Bar. The employee, who wished to remain anonymous, confirmed that Emma and Greg met there frequently and behaved in a close manner that clearly exceeded the boundaries of ordinary coworkers. In the meantime, he's acquired a lot of video of Emma and Greg getting intimate at the bar. 5. Finally, Jerry attached a blurry photo. In the photo, a man and woman are lined up at an airport security checkpoint, and although their faces cannot be seen, their body types and dresses are very similar to Emma and Greg. The timestamp on the photo shows that this is the exact day that Emma told me she was going on a business trip. Although most of this evidence is circumstantial, pieced together, it is enough to confirm my worst suspicions. I shut down my computer and walked to the window. The setting sun's afterglow colored half the sky, and I looked at the blurred horizon in the distance, feeling the anger rolling inside me. It's time to take action. I went back to my desk and began to organize all the information Jerry had provided. Every entry, every photo reminds me of Emma's betrayal, but I force myself to continue. These will be the fuel for my vengeance. After finishing up, I called my old friend Ron. He's a reporter for a well-known local newspaper. "Hey man," I said with forced levity, "got a big story to break, interested?" Ron's curiosity was obviously piqued. I briefly described the situation, omitting specific names of course. "Gosh," Ron exclaimed, "that's a powerful story. Are you sure you want to do this?" 100% sure. My voice was frighteningly calm. We arranged to meet the next day. After hanging up the phone, I started preparing the information I was going to give Ron. I carefully sifted through the evidence Jerry provided to make sure they were shocking enough, but not too revealing. The next day, I met Ron at the cafe as promised. He sucked in his breath at the first sight of me. "Man, you look like shit." I shrugged bitterly and didn't answer. We found a quiet corner and sat down, and I handed him the prepared USB flash drive. "It has everything you need in it," I said. "I only have one request. Wait for me to signal to release it." Ron nodded, looking serious. "I understand. Are you sure you want to do this? Once it's released, there's no turning back." I looked him straight in the eye and said, word for word, "I've never been more certain." Over the next few days, I began to prepare for my big plan. I contacted Emma's parents, friends, coworkers, and our mutual acquaintances. I made up an excuse about a surprise party for Emma and wanted everyone to keep it a secret. In the meantime, I haven't forgotten Greg. Through Jerry's research, I was able to easily find contact information for his wife, Christy. I sent her an anonymous text message suggesting that Greg was having an affair and advising her to keep an eye out for upcoming news releases. With everything in place, I sent Ron a short text message, "Let's get started." Then I turned on my computer and logged into my social media accounts. I uploaded that evidence to my personal page with a paragraph. 10 years of marriage for endless betrayal. This is the sweet time for my beloved wife, Emma, and Greg. Next, I opened my email and sent the prepared mass email to Emma's friends and family. The email was accompanied by more evidence and my grief statement. With that done, I leaned back in my chair and let out a deep breath. Now, just wait for the storm to fall. After a while, my cell phone started vibrating like crazy too. "It's Ron." "Man," his voice was full of shock. "The news is out." The effect was more violent than I expected. I turned on the TV, and sure enough, the local news was covering this incestuous affair that shocked the community. Although not mentioned directly by name, the blurry photo of Emma and Greg is instantly recognizable enough for those who know them. Just then, the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find it was Emma's parents. Shock and disappointment were written all over their faces. Is this true?" Emma's mother asked, trembling. I nodded and made a sad face. I just realized the whole truth too. They hugged me and apologized as if it was their fault. A twinge of guilt ran through me, but it was quickly drowned out by the thrill of revenge. There was a steady stream of visitors throughout the afternoon. Friends, coworkers, neighbors, they all came to express their sympathy and support. I stood in the center of the living room, accepting everyone's reassurances, but feeling a twinge of emptiness in my heart. In the evening, Emma finally called. Her voice was hoarse, and she had obviously been crying for a long time. "Why?" she asked. "Why?" I sneered. "Why? Did you ever think about why when you betrayed me?" "I know I was wrong," she sobbed, "but you ruined everything for me. My job, my friends, my family. What about you?" I interrupted her. "It was our marriage, our future, that you destroyed. Who are you to complain?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and finally Emma whispered, "Are we really beyond redemption?" I took a deep breath and calmly said, "Bye, Emma." Good luck to you and Greg. And hung up. Calm aftermath. After the storm of revenge, life seems to slowly return to calm. I went back to work and tried to fill the emptiness inside with busyness. Early mornings and late nights and weekend overtime have become the norm. My coworkers say I've become more focused and productive, only I know it's just a way to escape. One day after work, I received a text message from an unfamiliar number. "Hi, this is Christy Wilson. Can we meet and talk?" I froze for a moment, then remembered that this was Greg's wife. During the whole incident, I just sent her an anonymous text message reminding her of the upcoming news. "We've never met." After a moment's hesitation, I replied, "Okay, time and place?" We had an appointment at a cafe. Upon arrival, I recognized Christy immediately. She sat in the corner seat with a cup of coffee in front of her, looking a little nervous. "Hi, I'm Christy," she said as she stood up and held out her hand. "Thank you for wanting to meet me." I shook her hand and sat down. "Hello, Christy. What did you want to see me about?" Christy took a deep breath and looked me straight in the eye. "I want to thank you personally for exposing Greg's shameful behavior. I was a little surprised. You don't need to thank me. I didn't do those things for any noble motives." Christy shook her head. "Regardless of your motives, the truth is that you helped me see the truth. If it wasn't for you, I might still be in the dark and continue to live a false life." I was silent for a moment, not knowing how to respond. "The divorce is finalized," Christy continues. "And although the process was painful, I feel like I have my life back. I can finally get out of that miserable marriage and start my life over." "I'm glad you feel that way," I said. "At least this storm has had some positive effect on you." Christy looked at me with sympathy in her eyes. "I know you've been through a lot too. If you ever need to talk, I'm always here. After all, we've all been through similar betrayals." I nodded, feeling a twinge of warmth. It's an amazing feeling to be in a world where there are still people who truly understand how I feel. We chatted a bit more and exchanged some of our respective experiences and feelings. When we parted, Christy gave me her contact information. "If you need a listening ear, feel free to contact me," she said. As I watched Christy's back, I had mixed feelings. I helped her, but I hurt Emma at the same time. Revenge brings not all positive results. One evening a few days later, I heard the doorbell ring just as I arrived home. Through the cat's eye, I saw Emma standing outside the door. She looked much thinner than the last time they met, and there was apprehension and pleading in her eyes. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "What are you doing here?" I asked coldly. Emma lowered her head, her voice trembling a little. I want to talk to you. May I come in?" I hesitated, but eventually got out of the way. Emma walks in cautiously and looks around as if looking for something to change. "What's there to talk about?" I asked, hugging my arms and leaning against the wall. Emma took a deep breath and looked me straight in the eye. "I came to apologize. I know I made an unforgivable mistake that hurt you and hurt our marriage. I'm truly sorry." I sneered. "Apologize? You think an apology will make up for everything?" "No, I know I can't," Emma said hastily, "but I want you to know that I really regret it. I suffer every day for my stupidity and selfishness." "Then you should feel pain," I said, anger in my voice. "Do you realize how much damage you've done to our marriage, to my life?" Emma lowered her head as tears began to well up in her eyes. "I know I hurt you. I hurt our family. I lost my job, my friends, and even my family's trust. But what hurts me the most is that I lost you." "You lost me long ago," I said coldly, "the moment you decided to betray me." "I know," Emma sobbed, "but I hope that one day you can forgive me. After all we've been through, does it really have to end like this?" I took a deep breath and tried to control my emotions. "Emma, you ruined everything. You ruined 10 years of our marriage, the family we built together, and all my beliefs in love and trust. Do you think any of that is easily forgiven?" "I don't expect you to forgive me right away," Emma said, "but I hope you'll give me a chance to make up for my mistake." I shook my head. "There is nothing left to make up for. Your betrayal has done irreparable damage. I wake up every day and the first thing that comes to mind is an image of you and Greg together. I can't trust anyone enough to start a new relationship. Do you have any idea how horrible that feels? Emma wept silently and didn't say a word. You know, I continued, pain and anger in my voice. I used to think we'd grow old together, watch our children grow up together. But now, it's all just a ridiculous dream. You've not only ruined our past, you've ruined our future. I know I made a huge mistake, Emma sobbed. But can't we really start over? I'd do anything to regain your trust. I sneered. Starting over? Emma, do you really think things can go back to the way they were? The moment you betrayed me, you destroyed everything between us. There's nothing to start over with. Emma kept her head down, her shoulders shaking from crying. I looked at her with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to comfort her, wanted to believe that her repentance was sincere. But another part of me can't get over her betrayal and can't forgive her for the damage she did to me. You should go, I said finally. There's nothing more to say between us. Emma looked up with despair in her eyes. Is there really no turning back? I shook my head. No more, Emma. You've made your choice, and now you have to face the consequences of that choice. Emma stood up and wiped her eyes. I understand. I'm really sorry for everything. I hope one day you find happiness. I didn't answer, just watched her silently as she walked toward the door. As she was about to leave, Emma looked back at me one last time. Believe it or not, I used to love you with all my heart. The sound of the door closing stung in the silence of the room. I stood still, feeling wave after wave of emotions hit me. Anger, sadness, disappointment, a sense of betrayal. All of these emotions mingled together and left me almost breathless. I went to the window and watched Emma's figure disappear around the corner. Once, I thought our love could conquer all. But now, I realized that some hurts don't heal. Emma's betrayal destroyed not only our marriage, but my belief in love and trust. I turned toward the study, my eyes landing on the picture frame on the desk. That's me and Emma's wedding photo, and we're beaming with happiness. I picked up the frame, looked at it for a moment, and then gently put it in a drawer. Not to forget, but to remind myself that once something is lost, it can never be recovered. Sitting at my desk, I began to think about my future. Emma's apology didn't bring any comfort. Instead, it made me more certain of one thing. Our relationship was beyond repair. But that doesn't mean my life is over. I took a deep breath, stood up, and walked to the window. The world outside still runs. People come and go, each with their own stories and tribulations. I realized that although I had experienced great betrayal and disappointment, life doesn't stop there. Perhaps true courage lies not in retaliating or forgiving, but in moving on. Whatever awaits me ahead, I will face it with courage. Because I understand that true growth comes from how I deal with life's setbacks and betrayals, rather than dwelling on the pain of the past and not being able to pull myself out of it. My marriage may be over, but my life goes on. The hurt may never completely go away, but it shouldn't be the only thing that defines me. I have decided that from this day forward, I will learn to find strength in my hurt and find myself in betrayal. This is not the end, but a new beginning. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.